Uh, Good morning. Hello, Sagebrush Sketchers. Welcome. How are all these senior citizens? I'm going to put the picture up here right away so I can try to get a thumbnail of that. I don't know if I'll be able to, but I'll give it a shot. This is my first time trying to record a video through OBS. I'm having so many difficulties with doing those live videos. I think I'm going to switch for a while and just do some of these pre-recorded. I still don't really have a way to edit these videos, so I'm just going to make them and try and do it all the way through like it was a live video. So good luck, huh? I really need a what do they call a tech person, someone that can either teach me to do all that stuff or do it for me. I don't want to imply that I'm lazy, but anyway, here's the picture we're going to work on today. What we're really trying to work on is aerial perspective. And if you can look, these mountains I might have made a little bit darker. Maybe we will on the next one. Uh, these two a little bit darker. And then this one a little bit lighter in the background there. Yeah, the house over here a little lighter, and these trees as they go into the different. In aerial perspective, as you look further and further into the distance, the reds, oranges, yellows, greens, all that stuff falls out. There's so many particles in the air that we look through that you don't see them. And as a consequence, the browns and oranges, yellows, things like that only show up the closer they are to you. So this is just an exercise in being able to uh, make create lighter variations of similar colors. So we're going to work with mostly with blue today. We use a little ultramarine blue and maybe some burnt umber or some burnt sienna, and then some burnt sienna for the cabin, and a little bit of foam yellow for the windows, the bright in the windows there. About like that. Maybe a little bit of yellow ochre for the little bushes down here, little grasses that are poking through the snow. All right, I am going to pop this up here so maybe you can see it well enough to get a picture of it uh, so you can draw from it. I'll leave it here for a few moments. Let me see if I have I'm looking for maybe I don't have one. I would have thought that I did have a piece of 5 by 7 here somewhere to uh, to kind of give you an outline of what it actually looks like. I think that's probably it right there. Let me give me just a minute here. I'll put a pencil to it and should look pretty close to what's in that pencil line there. Yours should when you draw it. You could move this tree over a little bit, or you can put another tree here if you want. There's quite a bit of room right here. In fact, maybe I'll do that on the one I've drawn right below here. So if you took your phone out and hopefully you got I'll hold this up, maybe you can try again, get a photograph of this, go click, so you can work off of your phone and look back and forth or have something to draw from. I will wait a few moments while everybody draws. While you're drawing that, I can show you. Let's see. I have one in another room that I didn't bring with me, but I'll show you in here. My placeholder, some of my scribbles. Just scribble on pages to get just just do just to have it. Let's see if I can find it. Here we go. You can see in this photograph. Go ahead and keep drawing, but if you get a chance to look up, you can see this is Emile Surratt, and it's called The Pond. It's an oil on canvas in the 1860s. But you can see that these trees are a darker image than these trees as they go further into the distance. And I doubt if you can see it because it's so faint, but there's a light blue hill or mountain back there, way back in the distance. Let's see if I can find another one here to use as an example. This is a terrific little book, Turner to Cezanne. Oops, there you go. There's bound to be another one in here somewhere. I wonder what that is. Hmm. You can see another way of doing aerial perspective. One of the things you can do is this is not only a lighter color in the background there, further away. You can see that there it is a green hill, but it's still very muted colors, whereas she's got vibrant colors on to bring her forward. Reds, um, yellow ochre, maybe, a brownish color there, a little bit of reddish in her hair, her face there. Uh, Another thing to pay attention to is that sh her outline is crisp. The lady here is very sharp. Her stick is pretty sharp, and yet the background is very fuzzy. It's another way to bring attention to your subject or to the foreground if that was your intent. I didn't tell you the picture. The name of that was Millet, Jean Franco's Millet. And it's called The Goose Girl at Grunchy. Hmm. Uh-huh. Curious name. See if I can find one more here in this book while you're drawing. Yeah, that one's not very good. Oh, I don't see any others in there. Well, this is actually a good one. Turner, this is William Turner's piece called Morning After the Wreck. But you can barely tell the people and stuff. This is just his style of there's people in here and there's probably a boat right here. But with the atmospheric perspective, I don't know if you can see it, but right there, there's a sailboat, big ship back there, way off in the ocean somewhere, or behind a cloud. See the sails in there? That would be an example of aerial perspective. On my little drawing here, you can see I kind of messed up the house, and since I draw in ink, I put these little, tried to get some white line in here to get rid of that little house. But one thing to pay attention to, see the height of these trees and the height of this tree, which is much closer in this tree. So these trees back here, this little house shouldn't be forward of the bottom of these trees. It should be around that size, or comparatively the same size as this house is to these trees. This house should be to these trees. And you could even put this house a little further up, in the landscape there. So I'm going to go ahead on mine and put a second tree in here just for the fun of it. Oops, not on this one, 'cause we've already done that. Maybe I will. Actually, I think what I'm going to do first is I am going to bring this one down a little bit. And these scribbled lines, I just put them in ink, but I'm going to come back with some paint. Back here on these, I try to not outline them too much, like the ones that are going to go here, because it's hard to fade them into the background since I draw with a fountain pen. But you can draw yours with, well, you can use just a, what do you call it? Pencil? Yeah, that should work fine. I'm just randomly putting in what I think some branches where they might be on a pine tree. This is no specific pine tree. It's just a tree that I am going to, one thing we want to try to do that I'm going to put in this painting. But one thing we try to do is put branches not perfectly evenly spaced, even though there are some trees that are that way. Really gets pretty boring in a painting to have everything be exactly the same distance apart. My computer keeps popping up with stuff in my face here. I use a program called OBS, and that gives me the ability to uh, change things, to hop in and out of your world, you know. But it also has to do more things. I'll give you another few minutes. Everybody who comes to these classes should already have their little bit of water on their paints so that their paints are loosened up a bit. Mine stay pretty loose because I paint in this thing, you know, pretty often. I paint in one of them. I change them around. I don't know why I do that, but I do. Just something to do. So you should have your paints wet. And I have my brushes ready to go. A pencil for, I don't know what. I don't know what I would do with a pencil in there, but, and my fountain pen. And of course, my tea. Look how I've already been hitting on that tea. Hmm. I don't know if you need that information. Okay. Have you paused it? You can pause it, draw the picture, then come back. I'm going to go ahead and start painting. There. I'm going to go ahead and start painting this. So, I've got some, with snow, you kind of want clean water. My container is pretty used and dirty, but I did put fresh water in it this morning. And it's just off camera there. So I'm dipping into the water a little bit. And I'm going to make the sky very, very thin. And with all of these colors back here, this is kind of, I'm thinking of a wintry day, kind of cloudy, kind of slightly a gray day. So I'm putting a little blue in here, but I'm also going to put just a touch of burnt umber in here to neutralize the blue, to gray it down a little bit. I want more of a grayish color. And I'm going to put quite a bit of water in this first wash. just because I want the sky to be pretty light. I have some flakes in here too that I probably should clean this out. Ultramarine blue does that, or French ultra kind of does. Sometimes will leave little things in it, granules. Okay. So on this first wash, you want to be ready with uh I have a little bit of an old t-shirt here, a colored t-shirt. This one's made one of the Carhartts, and I'm going to use that. You can use a tissue from one of those boxes with that you use for your sinuses, or you can use a piece of soft tissue. What we're going to do is we're going to paint down here, and then you can see we want to kind of fade this back up a little bit. So we're going to dab out quite a bit of it at the lower ends. So just the top of the mountain shows through as though there were clouds down here on the bottom. So let me get quite a bit of water going in there. I prop my piece right up on the bottom of my laptop here. And that helps. You don't have to do that, but for me, it helps to have the paint slowly work its way down the page or down the watercolor paper. And I can make a better wash with that. I'm adding a little water to it as it's up there, and I'm afraid you're going to see some of those, whatever they are. On the first one, I did a little bit of dry brushing here and there just to give some interest to the sky. You can do that if you want to. You can leave some places not quite fully colored, not quite fully painted in. You don't have to by any means. Now that's looking a little square there. I think I'll cover that up a little bit. As we come down into the next one, we want to put just a little bit more. You can do this one of two ways. Is there a hair in my thing? Something's in there. You can put a little bit more, make your color just a little bit richer. Or you can come down with the sky wash all the way and then quickly dab in there. And then you have to come back with another wash, which we may do anyway, to make these mountains the right value that you want. I have a piece of test paper here, just so I can see. Is that a little too blue, I think? What do you think? If you watch this video, leave a comment. Those comments really help the videos be seen. Of course, I don't really do anything to make these videos go out there. I teach a class, and these videos are pretty much just so people in the class can practice, can go back. But if you happen to see it and you enjoy it, why, put a thumbs up, make a comment. You want to be careful if that's too wet. We don't want to do this next layer if you haven't brought it all the way down already. Then you want to watch out, because if I touch this, I'll give you an example. If I put this paint in there, you can see how it's blossoming up into the sky. See how it's growing into the sky there? So you want to be sure that the sky is getting a little bit dry, because if this has more water in it, is wetter than whatever's on the page, the water will seep into it. So we'll give that a minute to kind of dry up a little. maybe take a sip of tea. Mm, pretty good. These classes are designed for seniors only because I tell senior jokes and things like that. Anybody can watch them, of course, but they do move at my pace rather than I watched some videos, for instance, that were on, using YouTube or how to set up the OBS, the program I'm using. And the people talk very quickly with a lot of information. Um, I don't know how the rest of my generation is, but for me, it's very annoying, very hard to listen to. I'm going to go back in here, trying not to put stuff up into that next one. And mine may be slightly darker than I would like. Mm. You can leave some dry brush. I could have left more there to indicate that there was snow on the mountain like that little patch. You see what I just did there? You can do more of that dry brushing in here. But what's important on this part of the project is to make this area softer down here. So leave a little more down in there. You can do that either by taking your tissue or your t-shirt and dabbing it. I am dipping my brush into the water and then I'm wiping the brush off on the side of the container to try and get it dry. I'm going to just take it along the bottom here and soften up some of these edges without trying not to put too much either water. I'm also hitting my rag that is over here to dry it up a little more. Trying to soften the bottom of that edge up as though this had a cloud in it. I'm going to pull out even a little more over there. Well, I didn't do a very good job with that one. Maybe yours will come out a little better. But it's there. It's there, and I have a memory. While that's drying up, you can see in the river that there are different. It's kind of hard to see because this river is so small, but I started out, see that color right there where the tip of my brush is? The lightest part. There are lights and then there are darks. We're going to try to improve on what I did with that one. So what I want right now is to put a very light wash over the whole river. Now, if it was a bigger painting, you could get more complicated, leave some white spots like as though there were ice or snow on parts of the river or the stream. This is more of a stream. But I'm not going to concern myself with those light parts. I'm just going to put a light color, a little bit of light pigment down on the whole river so that I have the beginning. I'll come back later with a little bit of dark material and color make some parts of it not light. So let's go ahead and get these other two mountains in here. I think this is about to get dry enough. And we want those just a little bit closer. They're coming a little bit closer, so the material that I'm going to paint with, slightly darker. Shouldn't be real terribly dark, but certainly darker than the other ones. See if this is any darker. I need a little bit more. Touch more of the brown. I don't know if you can see, but I'm getting very small amounts of the brown in there. Just coming on. And with this mountain, if your background, if that previous one is dry, you can do this, or you can do this with a pencil later, putting some tiny little trees back there. Put a little bit of a point on it. Some of them may bleed out. And here again, you're going to fade the bottom of it, kind of like there was, little clouds settling in there. So I've got my brush cleaned, and I'm drying it off a little bit, and just working it into the bottom there. You can even pull that mountain a little bit further back up, or that cloud. Take a little bit more out of there. Okay. And we're going to take some of this darker material and do the one on the right side here. Remember, don't paint your house. Or your cabin. I go back and forth with this. You can, again, leave white up there if you want to. I didn't leave much, but you can leave some dry brushed effect if you really want to put snow up on top of this thing that is, catching the light. Here again, you don't have to by any means. And I'm going to fade this one out a little bit, just like the other one. Clean my brush, wipe it off. Then wipe some of that out just to leave it so it's got a soft edge there. On this one, we kind of came up with some little bits there. On this one, I'll wait till this dries and we'll show you. You can put in just a few light trees there. Of course, you can pause this at any time. I am going a little quickly with it. But but you certainly don't have to. You can pause, you can rewind. Okay. While this is all drying up here, I'm going to take a smaller brush, slightly smaller. Today I'm using these Princetons. These are the Princeton Heritage Series, but you certainly don't have to. I've found some synthetic brushes at Michael's or Hobby Lobby, some at each that that do the job very well on these small paintings and you don't have to spend near as much money. It's I found a nice little pack. I think it had 5 in it that I'm using occasionally. Had 5 different size brushes in it, and it was under $10. I'm going to go ahead and put some light in there. Now, I'm not going to do it on this one. If this were a night scene, you can take that light that's in there and put it out here as though it were reflecting on the ground, and you can even do it in the daytime, but I'm not going to put it on this one. I don't think it's necessary to get this across. You can see when you practice up, see this one? I made this one first. See how it has this base, but also it's very straight across here. On this one, I kind of went up with it to leave a little like a snowbank here. Okay, that's going to dry, and then we'll come back in later and put the window, the sashes in there, the little cross pieces, or is that what they're called? Someone tell me in the comments. Maybe 5 years from now, when someone sees this video, I will find out what those little cross pieces are called. All right. This is starting to dry up back here. So I am going to take some of this material again. And I've got my hand brace. See my hand here? I put this hand on top of this hand so I can work fairly small. And I'm going to try and put some little bits of trees back here, but I don't want to make them very dark. If you think they're getting too dark, you can dab out a little bit. And now remember, these trees, see the bottoms? Everything is in perspective. So the bottoms of these trees don't come down near as far as these trees that are larger. And these trees don't come down near as far as these trees that are larger. Although these could have come down a little bit more. I'll put a couple more of those small background trees. So that's pretty thick for a tree back there. And I'm going to not put them, you don't know, you want to put some together and some with space. You don't want everything to look typewritten, right? Now these can be a little bit darker than these, but not as dark as these big ones. So I'm going to once again put a little more material in that mixture so that it comes out just a hair darker. Get quite a bit off of it, off my brush, because you could do this with a smaller brush if you want, because I want to have some small pieces in my trees, not everything. And I'm not trying to make these perfect by any means. I want these paintings to have some character, to be loose, to not have everything perfect. I'm not trying to do hyper realistic work here. I'm trying to do more like you might do if you get into urban sketching, or if you are a travel bug like my wife and I. We get out, as everybody that knows us knows, we we like to travel the country as often as we can, and if not, like last week, we were down at the lake and didn't even have a boat, and it's winter time, but we had the camper down there doing what's commonly known as dry camping. There was no running water in the trailer, but we were near some nice facilities. So Um, in any case, spent a few days down there. We'll go again when we get the chance. We just like to get out, do stuff, not be constantly in the same place or cooped up. I'm going to throw just some small indications of a few trees back here. These are just, if you really look at them, they're just a little line here and there, not really much of anything. Kind of like hairs on the back of an elephant sticking up. Okay, let's see here. Even a little darker material. A little more of that brown, a little more of the ultramarine. You can use either ultramarine or French ultramarine for these things. The colors we're using today are pretty much standard that I use so far in these tutorials. And that is there's ultramarine blue, cadmium red, burnt sienna. This is cad yellow light. You can also use lemon yellow. That's cad yellow. That's um, yellow ochre. This is burnt umber, burnt sienna, teal, Chinese white. That's an auxiliary color there. I believe I have purple in there right now. This is uh, azo green. You can use sap green, but you need to put a little bit of burnt sienna in the sap green if you do, because it makes it a little more khaki, like a pine tree or a juniper tree. Um, no, there's another green. I can't think of the name of it that you could use that works pretty well in its place. Just for this work, you want to stay away from a viridian for sure. You don't want viridian in there. It's really got a lot of blue in it, and very vibrant. It's a wonderful color, just not necessarily for a pine tree. So I'm just getting a little of this material. And whoops, that's a little cloddish there. Must be a nest or something in there. That's a little bit thick. And I'm just putting little bits and pieces. Another thing you can do that's kind of fun is in these foreground trees, just for the heck of it, you don't have to do it. Let me finish this part of it and I'll show you. There's an old saying that a lot of painters say that they've never seen a pine tree without some red in it. Red being the burnt sienna type color, Indian red, something like that. Um, which happens in the forest. Of course, there are a lot of trees without red in them, but it puts interest into it if you add a little bit of something here and there. Something. Let me finish this other tree and I'll throw in some brown or something. Do any of you have issues with your glasses? I have a heck of a time under certain circumstances seeing what I'm doing. The glasses move, even though these are progressives. And so sometimes they're not in focus, sometimes they are in focus, sometimes I can't get the focus, whether I use regular bifocals or not. You can you can make these trees. I will probably come back with a little bit more material and make these two back here, maybe all three of these, a little bit darker. But Let's see. I go ahead and put just a little little touches of burnt sienna, maybe a little there, and it'll fade in just a tiny bit. Mm, Let's go ahead and get some material on this tree. One good thing about us traveling that we get out in the camp trailer usually these days used to be in tents, and then we moved from a tent, from a small tent to a tent with cots as we got older. And these days we're pretty much in the little camp trailer all the time, when we travel. Not so much in tents anymore. Although I sometimes miss it, I miss. I'll tell you what we're really missing is campfires here lately with all the constant fires in a lot of the western states. Um, they won't they don't want you building campfires in, understandably, but man, I guess times are changing. What a shame. We used to be able to build campfires all the time. Now, of course, you don't have to put my trees in here. If you are, excellent at making trees, well, you can put some dark trees or some fluffy trees or junipers, or you can make them into lodgepole pines if you want, or something else, something that's that's fuller, that has a fuller tree, fuller foliage on it. I'm going to keep dabbing a little more color in here to make these stand out just a little bit more. I want them a little darker than the trees in the background. So I'm putting a little more material right on the same area that I just painted. And hopefully I'm just kind of this is really, I don't know that this is the best way to do this, but uh, I mean you could wait till it dries and then put another nice coat with a lot less water in it, but hopefully this dries. While that's drying up, let's have a look. We're going to say that the sun is coming this direction, coming like this. So this side of the house will be in shadow, or the cabin, but also that'll leave some shadowy things on this left side of the stream here. Some shadows reaching out into the water. And you can put you can make them dark, you can make it a little lighter, you can put some little bits and pieces here. Sometimes there's areas going across the stream. I'll let that dry up, and I may put a little bit more in there, a little bit of blue here and there. But here's a trick one. Here's the one that's really tough. And that is, where are you going to put the shadows? So for one thing, let's see, I would like to have shadow under this tree, and it's just a wiggly thing coming down to this, to the little stream here. I'm just using this same material. On the house, I'm going to have some shadow in here and here, some shadow from the tree stump in front there. And I'm going to go ahead and come out here almost square with some shadow and maybe throw in that stovepipe there, just a little piece of it. There would be some shadow here that kind of connects to these trees. It just goes wiggling on out here. Now, in reality, those shadows that I just put are kind of like the sun is this way. Try to determine before you start where your sun is. Put a little shadow here. Add a little bit there. And in front of my little house that I didn't do a good job drawing, you can see all the lines in there with my pen, fountain pen. But here, I'm also going to say that someone came there. So there's little steps here, and they get bigger as they come back here. Someone walked in there, right? And there's going to be, I would like to have some kind of, there's a hill, let's say right here, or maybe there's a hill. I'm going to say there's a hill right here that just a little hill in there that's creating a shadow. And on that little one right there that I just put, I'm going to fade part of it out, just kind of make it soft so it doesn't all look like a crisp line. Now you can see that right there, it looks like for some reason there's a crisp thing where the snow comes over and then there's a ridge. If you don't like a ridge there, you can soften it up, right? So that it's not all just a sharp ridge. I did do something there that I don't care for. See how this shadow lines up with this shadow? Try to avoid that if you get a chance, if you can. Maybe a little something out here. There's a couple of coming right from the house there. There's a little something coming out there. And maybe something back here, something back here in the distance, right? Just little somethings so that we don't have a bland, boring. While this is drying up, I think it is, I'm going to add just a touch. Whoa, look at how much that is. Whoa, mercy. That's a lot. Take some of that out of there. Mix a little bit of that in there so I have a little bit of teal. And I'm just going to add a little bit of lighter blue color here and there. The house in the background, I am going to say that it is far enough away that Ariel's perspective has pulled the color out of it. And it is just pretty much like the trees, a single color. Although this side I think should be lighter than this side, maybe even a little bit lighter than that. I'm going to leave the top of the building white, but I'm going to take, I've got a define brush here. I think this is, what is this, an aught? No, it's a number 2. And I'm going to put some dark and some of the darker around the edge of my palette here. I've got some pretty dark material. Put in a chimney there, a chimney there. And I think this the yellow is getting pretty dry there. I think I'm going to make those. Now you can, on larger paintings, I would put snow on these, whatever they're called, these cross members of the windows. But I am just going to use burnt sienna for this one, not pile up any snow on top of them. Because as you can see, the painting is so small. Do you see how that one just blobbed out? Let's see if I can fix that. Let's see if that's possible. I'm going to hit it with my rag. I'm going to hit it with a little water. There we go. If you have nice paper, this is 140-pound Arch paper that I buy here locally. I buy it in the sheets and cut it down. I use the pads also sometimes, but this happens to be cut down from a full-size sheet. You can, I don't know if you can get those on Amazon, but I know if you have an art store, a real art store, I doubt if you can do it from Michael's, but a regular art store that's not an arts and crafts store. Those I'm afraid are becoming a thing of the past. And, but if you have one in your area, you can probably get them there. Okay, let's see. I'm going to take that same little brush and throw a little bit more of brown in this tree here, just for the fun of it, because I didn't put any in, maybe a piece back here in this thing. You can put like out on the edge there if you want. You can put, if you want to, you can put all those top pieces are usually in brown. Here again, that one got a little out of control, a little large. Think I'm not paying enough attention, huh? I'm just jabbering away. That's all right. I just don't want it to be so dramatic up there that it steals the attention from the house. On the house, there's something you can do. This is a technique that we don't haven't talked about yet, but you can take some light shadow material and go ahead and put it in where you think the shadows are going to be. Under this, what is this, an eave here? Under this area, there's going to be quite a bit of shadow because the sun is coming that way. There might be some shadow around the edge of the door. A little bit of shadow under this piece right here. And this whole wall will be in shadow. You don't have to do the window if you don't want to. You could leave it bright. But you want to do the wall. You may have just a little shadow under here, depending on where the light is coming from. You might just put some there anyway, just for accent. Could have a little shadow on the inside of the door there from the door frame. The windows are pretty small. They would have the similar kind of thing, but it's really kind of small on a 5x7 to try and get that in there. You see how tiny that is? You don't have to do that if you don't want to. And then you let that dry up. Now, it may not be as all the shadow you want, but it it's a base shadow, and then we'll come in with the color on top of it after that dries. While that's drying up, I'm going to take a pretty fine little brush. I've got a liner here, and I'm going to get some yellow ochre on my brush with a little bit of water in it, so it's not just completely yellow ochre. I'm going to fling in some little bits of grass that happens to be poking through the snow. Maybe I have a piece over here. Yeah. Now these in back here, you can see something that I think we did better on this one than we've done on this one. And that is that this and this are very similar. They should be very faded, but this one's a little, if you can see how light this one is, it looks like it's way back there compared to this one. The separation between these two, when you practice this, when you're doing this, try to get that one to be really pretty light in the background. I don't want to make these any darker because that'll bring them really close to us. I am going to, however, put a little bit more dark material throughout my pine trees here. I'm running out of material though. Gotta make some more, I guess. Sorry about that. I used to watch Charles Reed. Does anybody know who that artist was? He's a pretty famous watercolorist here in the United States. Charles Reed. I think he was the man. I loved his style. It's very loose and if you get a chance, you should check out Charles Reed's work. He even had a few YouTube videos. I doubt if he's alive now, but because he was getting up there when I was watching his videos years ago. I haven't looked lately to see if there's anything of his. I have a couple of DVDs that he put out years ago. So that tells you they're not that old because DVDs aren't, well, for us folks that are 55 plus, DVDs are kind of a new thing. For people under 40, they hardly know what a DVD is, right? Because everything's digital now. Of course, I'm of an age that I used to make money at high school by selling 8 tracks. I put one of the early nowadays, of course, you can order cars come that way with these in them, but back then I put an 8 track tape player, which was the latest thing in my car, and I put house speakers in the back of the trunk, and wired wired the house speakers to my 8 track thing, and sold 8 track tapes out of the back of my car. And after high school, I'd go out there and open the trunk of the car, and it was unheard of then to have blaring music, you know. Okay, I'm going to come in here with some of that burnt sienna. Mine's a little bit neutralized because there's other things in there. I want to leave that little line white. See that little thing there? That's kind of a highlight. That's just a ridge, that piece of wood that would have caught some snow. And I'm just going to come over, and I'm not going to try to not put too much material on the door frame or the window frame. That one we're going to leave light, right? Because that's where the sun is hitting, presumably. And I'm going to put a little material back in here, though, right? There's also, this might even take a smaller brush if you have one. I'm going to use a little bit of the darker burnt umber for this. You want to leave some snow, but you want to show that these are steps. So there's a little ridge of snow on top of each one, right? And the door, I think I'll just do the door in a little bit darker mix as well. A little bit of dark, a little bit of burnt, oops, that's not burnt sienna. That is alizarin crimson, which we are not using. So there, I'll put a little darker door in there. I'm not sure I like it quite that dark. I'll pull out a little bit of that material. And I'm going to try and get just some fine paint on my brush so I can fix this that I messed up earlier. Now you can leave this white as though the sun were hitting the top of it. There's no sun out really, just that the light is still hitting there. And just say that this shadow here is from this side of the building, right? Or you can put a light gray on this. I think I'm going to leave this one light and see the difference. See how I made that one darker? So I'm going to leave that light, but I am going to put some little bits of ridge of shadow here for that. Right? If that shadow is showing down here, then this shadow probably goes all the way. Bing, bing. I'm not liking my stream very much, but I am going to come over a good portion of it with just some very light blue. Maybe you can do a better stream than I did there. I'm sure I could. If you want to get into detail, a lot of times on things like this footprint, there is a little ridge where the sun, where the foot went in, and the shadow is got a little ridge to it. But those things a lot of times will make a small painting look overworked. There is another one. As this dries, we need that to dry up. Oh, I know when we could do. I'm going to take this shadow color again. Now my shadow color has changed to all kinds of colors because I keep using it. And I've got it kind of dark. I'm not sure if that, in real life, it probably would be white, right? Would it be white? Let's try it in white. I did it in shadow color on this one. Put some smoke coming out there just because I thought it would show up. But on this one, I'm going to take Chinese white watercolor. Antonio, what's his name? I can't think of his name. Does anybody know who he is? Oh, he's a great artist. He's a great artist. I wish I could remember his name so I could tell you. But he says Chinese white watercolor because he's not. I sound Oriental, but he's from Spain, I believe. He says something that I really, really like. He says, "My painting has a story to say." When I think of his name, I will tell you guys, even if it's not in this episode, because I really admire the man. His work is amazing. Down here on the bottom, well, that thing right there is a stump. I don't know if you drew it in on yours or not. I'm taking some of the burnt umber and I'm just putting it on the right hand side and then I'm cleaning my brush off and I'm just going to move a little bit of it to the left hand side so could have some light on it there. And I'm leaving the top white as though some snow fell on it. There are things that I'm not doing that you can do. Now I'll do some just to show you. A lot of times there would be a shadow right here because of the thickness of that window frame. There would be a slight shadow on that side of it. Again, on the door, you can come back with that little shadow there if you have a very steady hand. That would be because the door frame or jamb sticks out a little bit under this thing here. There would be a little. This out here would be darker right under there where there is no light, right? There's no light coming through there, or almost none. There's another thing in this that this little building is on a concrete foundation, but the concrete foundation kind of ends right there because the snow is coming up. But you can make this part under here a little dark, nondescript dark. And I'm going to go ahead and put a little line under here, but it's kind of in my way because I need that wall to dry. Need that wall to dry so we can add just a little more. I'm going to say that these rocks are brown. They're poking out of the water there. And you can leave a little snow on top if you want. You don't have to. Just put in a couple of rocks poking out that were in the water. And the snow either melted or it didn't, never stuck. So I don't know here again if we're going to continue doing these. Um, I'm really going to try this one, see how much memory it uses, see if I can get it onto YouTube. I'm currently putting it, you can't see, but right off to the side there, I have a, you know, what are those storage devices called? Uh, Quadrobyte, you know, I don't know, auxiliary storage, we would call them. but I don't know what that is. Let's see if I can get this down here just a little bit. I'm working on something here, so give me a minute. A moment only. Let's see if this works. Oops. Dink. There I am. What is that? Can you see the edge of the window over here? Yeah, you can. Huh. I thought I had moved my image enough to where that was not there. So do 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 do. Oh well, it's there. I'm kind of here, kind of in the screen in the picture. Okay, to finish this up, I'm letting this just get a little drier here. To finish this up, or at least finish up for the day, I'm going to darken this side of the building so that the shadows are a little deeper. You can, I'm going to leave these white just as a highlight, the frames around the windows and door, just to add a little bit of something to them. You can mix a little bit of yellow, cadmium yellow, with a little bit of your burnt sienna and come up with a light color here and put just, that's a little dark there, but just little bits of, make this front of the house just a little bit sparklier or brighter. Oops, I buried my snow. There was a little bit of snow on top of that stump that I kind of buried there. I may darken up the front of this building a little bit too. You can, if you want to, you can do this with your pencil. I work, like I say, with fountain pens, so you can come back in and put a branch here and there. And when this dries, I would come in here in a couple of areas like this, and just to make things stand out just a little more. Put just a little bit of ink, your pencil, just to make things slightly more dramatic. I'd still like to see the side of this house get a little darker, to be a little, give it a little punch. You can put these lines, I've already got them in there, put some of those little lines to indicate that this is probably a cabin made of logs or something like that. I didn't put the detail of the corners being of logs because it's so small, it gets really confusing for a lot of people. I am going to go and put, I think this is dried up. The smoke is drying, so I'm going to put a second coat of Chinese white watercolor on there. Try and get that a little bit lighter in there. And go ahead and come out on that side. I'm waiting to see if I can squeeze one more wash of my shadow color on the side of this house. You could put another wash of the burnt sienna, the lighter color, on it and kind of build it up. It's kind of fun to play with those things and just see what you can do. So, folks, let's see here. While I'm waiting for that, I'm going to go ahead and pull the tape off. Remember, if you pull the tape, check out some things on aerial perspective. The reason I bring this aerial perspective up is because I've had to help people tell me that they knew what aerial perspective was. And to them, aerial perspective was when you were in a plane looking down at the ground. That is a bird's eye view in perspective, but it is not what we commonly refer to as aerial perspective. Aerial perspective is what happens to things in the distance when particles, small particles in the air, get in between you and the item that you're looking at. There's a lot of ways to do snow. This is just a quick way. If you sit somewhere and it's snowing and uh, and you'd like to record the event, to remember it, to remember, oh, I was stuck there in that place because the snow came down so heavy, and make a memory. All right, I'll try this one more time here. I will have a look. Let's see if that's dry enough. Maybe it's dry enough. Oh my gosh. Maybe I'll just wash the whole painting right off the wall here. I'm going to put. Now that's getting so colorless, so flat that I think personally I would come back with one more wash after that dries of some light burnt sienna right over the top of it to try and bring a little color back in it. But with that, I'm going to say thank you very much for coming. It's always nice to see you folks, and I hope you will come again and we'll paint something else. Next week, I think we're going to something a little gentler. I'm not quite sure because last week I tried to put up a video and it was another exercise of this subject, but a different painting. But I couldn't get it to load, so I couldn't do a live video. I tried 4 times and I thought, well, I'm making everybody crazy. So I quit. But I haven't decided for sure whether I will do that one again, or I have a water pump, an old-fashioned hand water pump I've been wanting to do as a class. So we'll see. Stay safe, stay healthy, but mostly stay happy. Let's stay happy. All right, folks, take care. I'm going to stop this recording. Have a good one.